You should vote. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission, Monday, November 1st, 2021. We're located in the Ronald Reagan Room of the Red Oak Municipal Center, 200 Lakeview Parkway, Red Oak, Texas. We do have a quorum here tonight. I have myself, Derek Parks, Chair, and we have Mr. Leroy, Vice Chair, Mr. Scott Lindsay, and Mr. James tonight. And for the city, we have Mr. Ben and Mr. Ryan. So, starting off, we have two items here, call to order, and we have items. And Mr. Kim. Oh, and go back, we have Kim on Zoom, so Kim is present tonight. Thank you, Ms. Kim. I guess the first item here is to consider approving the minutes from the last meeting, October 4th, 2021. Members, y'all have any questions about those? Any comment, question? No? And can I have the motion, please?
A motion to accept the meeting, permanent notes.
Yeah. All right. Minutes have been approved. The next item here, consent agenda item is considering approving Summerwood Final Plat Phase 1, approximately 34.2 acres out of the John Nugent Survey, A-796, creating 92 single-family lots in the city of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas. Case number P as in Paul, 21027, requested by Kevin Webb.
Yeah, well, it was technically a consent agenda, I didn't realize you were going item. So it's consent. Again, it's a ministerial act, fighting the forms of zoning, so it basically just needs a vote.
All right, members, have a motion, please.
Motion to approve the as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. The next items we have is new business, which is item C, is conduct a public hearing and consider a residential replat of Brooks Edition, which is currently zoned PD 88. There is no change in zoning. This replat will create two lots out of 13.4 acres. Lot 1, Block 1 will be approximately 9.4 acres, and Lot 2 will be approximately 4 acres. As Coleman Survey, A-695, generally located north of West Red Oak Road and south of Country Ridge Road in the city of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas. Case number P as in Paul, 21025, requested by Chris Lofton. Staff.
So, with this property, the main thing to know is, again, it's a ministerial act. It's a residential replat, but per state law, a residential replat is required to come before you in a public hearing, and we'll be noticing people after the vote within 15 days of the approval. The nature of the law had more to do with when variances are being granted, but there are no variances with this, so it's just a formality, really. Otherwise, this would come before you as any other plat or replat situation. But again, since it's in a residential zoning district, it requires this public hearing. The one thing I would just point out, and on the record, it was also referenced in the memo to y'all, is this whole property was subdivided and really shouldn't have been. Our ordinance requires that lots come to y'all for platting to be subdivided, not by a warranty deed. And so this property's already been subdivided and bought. So this plat just makes it all legal and follows the rules, and we get our right-of-way dedications and our easements and all that good stuff. So this just puts everything in order as it should be. The other thing to know is, Mr. Lawson, he owns this property at 100 Country Ridge. That is not being included into this replat. This replat just has to do with Mr. Brooks's original lot, is what's being subdivided there along the creek, along here. So, and it's under TD 88, which functions as a residential estate district, generally speaking. So, if Mr. Lawson wants to use this property, depending on what he wants to do, he may need to revisit the zoning, because you're only approving the plat. You're basically just making the fact that they subdivided the plat legal. The use of the property still all falls under zoning. You must follow all the rules of the city of Red Oak. They had some ideas about things they'd like to do with the property. We haven't really settled on anything as far as we know, but I just wanted to be clear that if they do want to do something with the property, they need to talk to us. Because, for example, if you want to build a house, you're probably going to need to provide a development plan to amend that PD for that property where you may do it, and it needs to generally follow residential estate rules. But also, if you had, say, in mind, you wanted to do like a greenhouse, right? Well, that's an accessory use. You can't have an accessory use without a primary use. So his options are going to be to either replat and bring his residential home, this 100 Country Ridge estate, and we pick a zoning district that should apply, and make it all one contiguous lot. Or he needs to provide a primary use, which would be a single-family home. So those are just those are some technical kind of zoning issues that relate to this. You're not approving any of that because it's already got zoning. You're just addressing the plat, you're making it legal when you approve it. And again, we've had some back and forth on some uses and activities on the property, so we just want to be crystal clear. Y'all are not sanctioning or approving anything other than the plat.
Right.
Nothing regarding zoning or code enforcement issues. That will all be separate. Hopefully there won't be. I think I've beat that horse to death.
Thank you, Brian. This is a public hearing, and we will have those in favor of the item go first, and those that are against the item go second, or maybe if we have any questions, if anyone has any questions just about the agenda item. So those that are in favor of this item, you can please go, where's the microphone?
Well, if you stand actually close over here, it can be picked up.
Right, I think so.
Yeah, if anyone wants to speak, if you wouldn't mind, just maybe stand roughly about here when you speak, and that way the microphone can pick you up.
If we have anyone here present that's for this agenda item, you can come to the front and speak, please. If not, I think we have a few people on Zoom. I don't know if they want to speak for this item. If not, do we have anyone that's against the agenda item C? Or if someone had questions about agenda items? Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
Second it.
Okay, members, do I have any questions on agenda item C? Anyone to discuss or talk about? Anything? Try it out. And can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve P and Z agenda item C, and conditional staff and engineering comments being satisfied.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Ayes have it. Agenda item C has been approved. Moving down the line, we have agenda item D, and it's also a public hearing, and consider changing the zoning from single-family residential R3 to, plan development based on, commercial C1 uses and district standards, to allow for an office building and other C1 uses at 101 East Red Oak Road, further described as being approximately 0.8 acres, 751 McKinney and Williams Survey Abstract, City of Red Oak, Texas. Case Z as in zebra 21027, requested by Joyce Stat. Staff, please.
So, on the northeast corner of Red Oak Road and North Main, there's a currently zoned R3 residential lot. And the applicant has requested to, change it to a PD that would be a limited retail commercial office feature. And so we worked with them on, first of all, kind of limiting the uses. It's provided C1 as a reference point, so you have an idea of where these were being pulled from. And then in red, I marked some of the changes, such as highlighting where some of these uses would need to be by SUP instead of being permitted by right. That's what might normally be allowed in the commercial one. And also in red, just making notes such as you obviously wouldn't have a large-scale home improvement store, but if somebody wanted to do like one of those little Rockler woodworking supply shops, that small scale, this way, something like that can happen. There's no outside storage. So, the idea is not to try to have like a mini hardware or something like that. Again, highlighting some more of the changes for SUPs to further restrain those uses. And then, less-than restaurants, but drive-through not allowed, obviously it wouldn't work on site. And again, the site only has so much parking, so any uses are gonna be contingent on having the parking. So the property owner would have to manage who they're leasing to and ensuring that they're gonna have enough parking for whoever they may have lease agreements with. But in theory, you know, maybe a small sandwich shop might fit in, but obviously not something large would never work. But that's just to kind of give you a quick overview of the uses. Then the development plan itself, the idea here is to kind of provide a bit of a visual cue to our downtown. So I haven't shown you the architecture yet, but the site layout, that's one reason why the building is pushed to the corner towards the street, parking in the back. And this is to try to help give a sense of transition more towards an old town area, more walkable type area, not a suburban commercial shopping strip. It doesn't seem like that's what we would want. Doesn't seem to be what the applicant wants, so they're proposed this. I'd also note that we do have across the street, there's like a little, it's an office for a healthcare services type business. Y'all may remember a couple of years ago, they converted an old residential house, added some parking stuff. But that's the only kind of commercial use you have right across the street. On the south side, you got some churches and stuff, but no real commercial retail type business otherwise. And give you I tried bookmarking this time, so I'm not in the habit of using the bookmark. So the aesthetic we worked with the applicant on, again, is to give a nod to the historic downtown area, and to have some of those elements, not necessarily trying to recreate history, but something that does have those elements. So you've got tie rod style metal awnings, you do have your 100% masonry, you've got a heavier white stone or brick material at the bottom, with darker stone above it. You've got some, like a soldier coursework. Then around the windows, you've got a brick treatment that helps identify areas where possible signage could go. So the idea would be the signs fit in there. and these are the other sides of the elevation. They've worked out, jump back to the site plan. The dumpster is in the back corner, has some landscaping around it, so it's reasonably well hidden out of view. They've got quite a bit of landscaping and trees and shrubs all around the fronting of the two streets in particular. Mechanicals out of view, has a 24-foot wide fire lane. Fire had no comments as the radii that they asked for. What else? It would be generally consistent with planning area 10 and the comp plan. I mean, again, this is currently zone residential 3. And the comp plan has planning area 10 identified, which can be a lot of things as far as uses go. That can be residential, it can be retail and office, stuff like that too. There are many scenarios that could align with the comp plan, and the zoning for it, and this is what the applicant has put before y'all to ask you to consider. With that, any questions you may have, and I believe the applicant is here.
Okay. This is a public hearing, and those in favor of this item, you have a chance to go first. Those who are against this item will go second. And if someone had any questions, they can go last. But since we have people here physically, if you are for this item, you can please stand up here in front. Please state your name and your address.
I'll get you started. So I was the applicant, I'm the engineer and the surveyor on this project, and my name is Joyce Stanton, Yeshilo Cherry Stanton and Associates, 908 West Main Street, Arlington, Texas. And Lynn and Kay came to me and they had this piece of property and they wanted to figure out what they could do with it. So we helped them figure out how to put the driveway around it, to hide the dumpster, and they actually, Kay owns the property next door and was really excited about building something here. We will have, so there's required detention from an engineering standpoint, there's required detention. And so what we did is we put it on the front, which is the downstream side, and we're going to have flagstone in the flow line and some plants that like to get their feet wet so that even when the sprinklers run too much or something, they'll do well. And we did work with the city staff quite a bit to come up with a plan that fit in the master plan for that area. And I'm available for any other questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Please state your name and address. While you're in favor of this item.
Yeah, tell me this.
This is Ms. Kay.
I am Ms. Kay, and I acquired this property to make it retail, and I wanted to change the zoning. I think it would be something great to add to Reno. I'm excited to see everything come together and make it nice to be, in the community, feel something better.
Okay. Can you give us your full name and your address?
Kay Jackson at 101 East Reno from Reno, Texas, 10515.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor of this item? I know we had a few people on Zoom. If you're able to hear me there, if y'all want to, if someone on Zoom is in favor of this item, could you please have your chance? If not, anyone that's not in favor of this item, or maybe have any questions about agenda item B.
Yes, sir. I do have a question about an agenda item.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Please
I
state
was
your
just
name and
wondering,
address.
by the time I got logged into the Zoom meeting, I saw my plat going past the screen. So I was just wondering, we get the plat, or I just don't know what, for 100 Country Ridge, Red Oak Road, I don't know if they were giving us an address or what. I'm trying to get power out there and all that stuff pretty soon, water and power.
Yes, Chris, this is Brian, the planning and zoning manager. Excuse me. Yeah, your replat was approved. We're also gonna need the property tax certificates from you, but I'll email you, tomorrow with, what else we need to move forward. But,
Okay, sounds good.
the replat was approved.
Awesome, sounds good. I'm gonna get back to the baseball game.
Okay.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Hence the sun.
Go Rangers.
Have a motion to close the public hearing?
Our motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Public hearing has been closed. Commissioners, y'all have any questions or concerns? Question for, Joyce?
I'd like to ask her one question. You say you have a vision. What is your vision for that?
To be able to lease affordable spaces, bring something for, small, but not too big, for the community in there, where we can do that space and still, it's not to be something that can be nice to acquire the rest of the state.
So you're possibly looking at multiple tenants?
Yes, sir. With small businesses, nothing that's too big, but nothing too small for it. It's no type of strip right there, so people that maybe need small office space that's not for living in the community.
I have a ton, but you guys knew that was coming. This is back in the same area, we just approved a large residential area. And I don't have to repeat my concerns with traffic.
Right.
How far are we talking about, Brian, on the applicant? I'm sorry that y'all are behind me, I hate that. I wish we could do something about that next time. As a cop, this makes me nervous. But how far are we talking about the entrance from the entrance of this new residential area? As far as egress, egress.
So you're talking about from on the Red Oak entrance?
Yeah, well, yes, sir. Because I'm assuming the other one's gonna be pushed out on Main Street.
Is the resident, you say you live next door to it, is it between the two properties or is it behind it?
Yes,
Okay. So that's your property there in the middle?
yes.
It's about 250 feet from the street to the driveway. And then they've got obviously, they have the other driveway on Main Street, lined up. The one across the street.
That's question one, and then I'll kind of go back to what concerns. Question two is the, trash dumpster. Would they enter and exit off Red Oak Road, or would we be utilizing this street?
Main.
Main Street? That's a concern of mine, now putting a commercial dumpster or trash truck, residential street, that is very inadequate, as we've already talked about, need the city manager to discuss that. That's going to be a concern of mine as well, although I know it's not going to be I don't know how often it would be done, if it's going to be multiple tenants, so that's another issue. The other concern that I have is, while I appreciate the narrowing down of the type of businesses, there's still a whole lot of difference between a pet store and a restaurant, as far as it's going to be, regular traffic in and out in those high traffic areas. And living there, you know what I'm talking about with the traffic, very concerned. that's the only concern I have. Are we creating a potential safety issue? Again, we've just added, how many homes?
140.
140, in the same area. And, we've got, when the traffic survey was done on the residential side of it, I understood the flow and saying that roadway could take the flow. What I've kind of done a lot more studying on traffic studies since that point, where we don't take into consideration is the side streets that funnel into that. There are 9 streets that go into Red Oak Road from the residential areas that are non-controlled. That's not counting Methodist where there is a traffic control device. That's 9 left turns, right turns with no turn lane in the middle. And adding businesses in that area as close to the railroad tracks and that, the other concern is just a big concern, that area was not developed to be a commercial area. It never was. I've been here for many, many, many years. That's the residential area. And to see it become commercial in a high-density area of residences is a concern. So maybe we can address, number one, the trash issue and the potential of that. From y'all's standpoint, is that not a concern of a commercial dumpster, trash truck being in and out on Main?
Well, my thought is that they are going to utilize Main Street as the entrance because it's a different truck that picks up the dumpsters than it is the residential. So that truck would have no reason to go up Main Street. They would hit the churches, right? I think they have dumpsters as well, and then they would use Red Oak Road to turn into the front entrance.
So both churches are currently using commercial dumpsters as well.
Right. So my guess is that the commercial dumpster operator would be, or the garbage truck operator would be hitting them all off the main road. I wouldn't think he would have any reason to go in there from the main street side. And I guess he might pull in, pick it up, and then exit through Main, just make the circle. So that's surely a possibility.
And that's just the distance there on, I'm not talking about going all the way down Main, talking about the distance. And we go back to whether that area needs to be, improved, right, concrete, or whatever, from that point back to that.
Well, I would say there's no doubt that it needs to be improved, right?
Whether it will.
100% it needs to be improved.
Oh, correct.
And we're trying to do these things, we've got impact fees coming up for a study, so we can start charging these businesses when they come in at the time of permitting, so that we can get those upfront fees that help us do those improvements.
Yeah, because what we talked about the last meeting with the Knox truck stop in front of our development, the same thing, those roads are tearing up even more as we increase. That was my concern with the 18-wheelers coming through there.
Yeah,
on Goddard.
I think certainly the vision of the city is and should be, hey, all these old asphalt roads, one day when we're in a place where we can replace them, we're gonna replace them. I don't think we're not there yet, but it takes, it's like chicken or egg, right? You can't put it all in and then expect people to come, but at the same time, you gotta get them here, so you've gotta have some stuff on the ground so that you can service them. But the reality is we need the ad valorem value, start putting together programs that allow us to get bigger bonds, that put programs together that allow us to do big street projects.
And that's understood, because I heard that same thing argument 15 years ago. Okay? And you guys have no idea what the city of Red Oak looked like 15 years ago. I did.
I was here.
Okay. So my point is, we are talking about a development now coming in with a potential issue and a problem in a commercial area that's not built for a commercial area. And that's what I'm trying to get over, is to find out, are we creating an issue for the residents now, residents that live in this area, are we creating an issue for them, in the city? Because the city's gonna be, it's on our ticket. We approve this, they start ripping up roadways coming in and out of there, we're paying for that. The city's paying for that, not certainly our tax.
And that kind of goes to my question too about how would that, if you're looking at subdividing between two businesses, that should probably cut down on how much trash is gonna go in there. But if you're trying to put 10 different businesses in there, it could, and that was why I asked you that. Because I would love to see this area grow. We wanna build downtown, but at the same time, like what we're saying, if there's, let's say, one or two businesses in there that are gonna be complementary to the homes and stuff that are there plus coming in, it would be great. But if we're trying to just divide it up to get 10 businesses in there that are just creating trash, creating traffic, I think that's kind of what Steve and I are talking about.
I have one question. So because I joined for y'all to do the residential side, so they're gonna have to have trash something there. Some people is already coming to the big property.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so what will be the difference?
Well, the difference, first of all, is what type of trash truck goes in a commercial versus residential. That's different trash. They have different.
Right, it's gonna be more like townhomes, they have to put their trash out for the individuals to come in there, it's gonna be more for like.
Correct, and those will be concrete streets that are being done by the developer. They're going to be required concrete streets. It's the Main Street portion that's not concrete that's concerning, and it's not really your problem. It's the fact that could potentially create a problem with the trash and with multi, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not against here, I'm with you on this condition, and I wouldn't be on the council for many years as I was. But I don't want to create a problem, a bigger problem than what we're asking for. So, and going back to the churches, those are access off of Red Oak Road.
Correct.
Where they come into the dumpsters, and I watched them do that the last day to see. So we are talking about something different on that side. So, I don't know the answer to this, guys, but I don't want to sit here and not address big potential, and somebody come back here 2 years from now and say this road's tore up, nobody can do anything about it, now it's the city's responsibility, and put it in that. So that is a concern. And again, the traffic flow, with these, you're envisioning 1, 2, 3, 4, how many are y'all planning on subdividing here?
This is a 6,000 square foot building that they're gonna use part of it as part of the headquarters. There'll probably be 1,500 square feet.
Okay.
Lease spaces just for, just corporate office kind of stuff.
And see, that makes a big difference. And I think that kind of answers this question. Let's just say we were putting Subway, Firehouse, and a donut shop. Well, no, but that's what we're saying.
Correct.
That would create more trash, meaning that it have to be done more, but if it's like what you're saying, it would probably work in the same schedule that they have. And if you're looking at one time going in there versus going in there every day, like a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's, then there's no issue.
I certainly understand that, in the usage on this, maybe that's what, it's a broad use that you're looking at there, and maybe it needs to be calmed down, because it's really, knowing what they're doing, it's literally mom and pop, smaller, just corporate office kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
But very little, I don't see anything that we've ever talked about that right about that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and also remember, drive-throughs are prohibited, and there's a limitation because of the park.
Right.
So even if you decide to install a donut shop or a sandwich shop, and then also the office, there's gonna be a limit to what they can install, because we have minimum parking requirements by the city, and so all the square footage has to add up to, and cannot exceed with the different uses and the different parking, the parking that's available. And it's not a whole lot of parking available, it's pretty much limited to all.
Right. No, like I said, we're there with you. It's just, no more donut shops. We've got 13 of those here now. I know.
Right, and historically, that's the issue. You come with all the best intentions of office space, which again, is no problem. But you sell this down the road 10 years and keep now made it a commercial area. What's the next person going to do with that? We have to look at, the only reason I say that is because, unfortunately, as a council member years ago, we made a mistake. And we approved things that turned around and bit us later on because it wasn't the intention. So I'm very hesitant to that. You know, again, I think that what you're saying, I don't know, Brian, from you guys' standpoint, if that can be narrowed more than that list already is. You have to tell me the legality of all of that. If we just say commercial and all of these are approved, and someone comes in and puts the larger of all four of those. Correct.
Right, so I mean, as discussed, there's the limiting factor of the available park is already gonna be a constraint on any use. Then, I worked with them on a use list based on C1, but like I said, it's been cold with a lot of stuff. It's ultimately it's the applicant's use list, so applicants, I mean, we work with you, but it's your plans, it's your list of uses. It's your day in court, as it were, and if I understand correctly, you already own this property, right? So, I think it's kind of on you to make a case for, if you really want the restaurant use, you need to really advocate for how that's all gonna work and address the commissioner's concerns. Or you may want to consider letting that use go, and we can easily, just mark that off the list as a use that wouldn't be allowed. So I mean, again, you're asking, but they're the ones who get to decide, as well as council. And so, I mean, I think what I think I'm hearing is the commission's trying to work with you and be pretty nice, but if you don't feel strongly about the restaurant, because again, we talked about how constrained it is, and as Joyce mentioned, even office uses might be really kind of that intensity level. Generally, uses that are 1 per 200 square feet or 1 per 300, that's probably how much parking you have, really. For the most part. So, like, that's why I said if there was going to be a restaurant, it's probably going to be a tiny little sandwich shop. Kind of New York style. It's really narrow.
Just for example, if one of the 1,500 square foot suites was a restaurant, it would use up 20 spaces. They only have like 38 or something, so.
Restaurant.
It wouldn't be a good use for the applicant, to let a restaurant go in there, because they would chew up all their parking, so.
That's not even in our.
Okay, you'd end up having a restaurant, you got a restaurant and an office space and then two blank spaces, and you couldn't get a CO for anything else.
So the COs would have to come back to us if they
Well,
open.
they come through our office.
Well, that's what I mean.
We go through
Right, okay.
the parking calculations on that,
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where, again, in looking at that list, I can tell where you were going. And I completely trust, but you're a resident, you don't want to have a problem next door. But just like I may not be here 10 years from now, you may not be here 10 years from now, we've got to look at, what that used to be. And there is a lot of difference in a hardware store, even though it's not an Ace Hardware, and a pet shop.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of difference in a medical office, some type of whatever. And that's where I'm looking at it. I've got to look at that list and say, if someone does come to that, the next owner, and that's what they want to put in there, are we creating an issue for you, even if you're next door, you tell me.
I didn't bring a printed copy of the list, but I'm sure Trey would be delighted to look at the list and see if there's a couple of things she'd like to mark off.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if this is just a usage, a matter of market, some of the things off this were concerned about, I don't think that's gonna be an issue, 'cause it's really gonna be office space, you know?
Well, and that makes me feel better here, that it's office space, because again.
Right, but you're not
That
looking,
is,
I don't have any.
Got it. Just
Right,
like,
Or
right.
a pet store, that, I didn't realize that was.
Well, and that's why I was saying, there's a lot of things that, and I know today's work, you guys, y'all did narrow a lot, of things that could have been even a bigger issue. And it's just, the more narrow the scope, the better I'm gonna feel about our city street that has to deal with the trash and the volume of traffic now it's, I mean, you have to get out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It-
mean,
it's a
I
concern.
another call for the residential, I'm like, yeah, the traffic is most definitely,
Right.
but if it's coming in, I just feel off of Main and not just off of Red Oak Road, it is less. You know, I'm there looking out throughout the day, monitoring the traffic, it's no different than the business on the side of the home hill. They have cars in and out, and they have, they don't, house on once a week, you know, for dumpsters.
Right.
I know they just actually office space. So, yeah, nothing that I foresee going in there where we would need to dump the people 2-3 times a week.
So if there's a couple of uses that are really causing indigestion, for the commission, would we want to just go ahead and take them off, like pet shops? So you'll never have a pet shop.
Well, and my first thing was this restaurant.
Yeah.
That's the one that kind of caught
We
me.
would not tell her, I don't have the doctor.
So we could
You know,
just,
usually cooking food there.
Could it be-
along with the office.
could it be approved with the understanding that we would not want it to be,
I don't want.
As a
I think my advice would be is if the applicant is already willing to remove something, it's never too late to edit your application. So if you already know you want to remove some of these uses off the list, I got them up right now, I will just start marking through them, and that they're officially off the list. So, for example, if y'all say you don't need or want the restaurant use, I'm gonna strike it off the list, so when they vote, they're not approving that, they're only approving what's been submitted, so we're kinda doing a real-time edit here.
is that fine with you, Scott?
Hey, I have a question, and I cannot hear everything that the applicant's answering to the questions, but do they already have some proposed tenants or businesses? Because they keep saying the words, offices and not necessarily some retail businesses. So I didn't know if they already had someone targeted. Here's my other concern. We have a shopping center literally right down Main Street that's sitting empty. The last thing I want to build in Red Oak is another office building that's going to sit empty. So I'd like to know if they've talked to any potential tenants and office owners.
I think you said,
If you had potential, your idea of who was going to already have in place.
I think you guys said you're occupying part of it, aren't you?
Yeah, office space, no, if you said about retail.
Right, retail.
yeah, she get rid of them.
Yeah,
We retail.
no, we don't have anyone who's asking anything about retail, it's mainly just office, and what you said, office space.
You're
And I'm
saying,
not concerned about it being empty, which is.
she was worried about empty retail.
Right.
So
Kim.
if you were making retail, then it's.
Kim.
Why don't we go ahead and take a few of these things off the list? Now, once they're off the list, that can, they come back to this commission for them to get back on. But what if we go ahead and just take a few things off, like Brian said, mark through restaurant right now, no restaurant,
Right.
and no restaurant with private club.
No,
And then they're not even under consideration.
exactly.
And, we can go back up to the pet store. We don't
No
think
parakeet shop.
no parakeet shop, no.
Okay, and I was using that one as something that didn't concern me because it would be very little in and out. I don't think they're bombarding. I was more concerned with,
But you are occupying,
No, we're not gonna do that.
You said, how much space do you occupy? Just one suite?
No, like two office spaces.
About half.
Kim, did you hear that?
No, I cannot hear the applicant speak.
She She's actually occupying probably a third of the space herself. So, half of the space,
So that's 3,000.
her company is actually occupying it. So it's like she's leasing out the other half of it, but half of it is hers. She will actually be occupying it.
And what kind of business does she operate?
That's pretty cool. We use it for our corporate office, for our headquarters, our corporate office, so we suggest we don't partake.
It's gonna be used for a corporate office space for another business. So she's gonna occupy half, which is approximately 3,000 square feet, and she's gonna lease out the other 2 suites to another office type user. But that building's gonna be used for her headquarters. So it's gonna be pretty much half owner occupied.
I have a question.
Anything else, Ms. Kim? I don't want to.
I'm sorry, sir.
Kim, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So when it comes to bakery or confectionery shop retail, so that's where nuts and bun cake or a donut shop or ice cream shop all kind of comes in. So if we're not feeling good about that, then the applicant doesn't care to have it anyways, that would be another one I would recommend the applicant cut.
Because if you look at Snowflake right there on the opposite side of the traffic through there is crazy. And that, again, would take up, like you said, so if a donut shop is not.
Yeah, y'all keep going back to kind of restaurant, I don't have a desire
Okay.
to even lease and even have food.
Well, no, he has to ask that so that way we can go ahead and get this done.
I don't even have a desire to have anything more like a small donut place, this type of large restaurant style, mixed in with the office space.
So we can just take that off now. That's what they're asking.
You know, the only reason it's left broad is because I guess we were somewhere else and, it was zoned commercial and they could have a little, ballerina school, right? Well, then the owner wanted to sell tutus to her students.
Right.
This is a different city, but then she was prohibited from selling tutus to her city because that would be retail, right? So because of that old history, we said, okay, well, we don't want you to get in that spot where you're have some use and then.
Oh, yeah, I do want to say, right, if you say, somebody said, okay, we got something small, like you said, he wasn't concerned about a small gift shop, which I don't have exactly one. If it was something small, if someone had to come in and buy something, then it wasn't gonna be like, we was gonna have 8 cars lined up to purchase it, then I would want to be able to do that, I don't want to.
No, that's still up there.
So while she wants to keep it mostly office, that's
But
pretty
nothing
much
for
broad in
restaurant.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think he addressed that.
I guess just a few of those need to be
Yeah.
presented, right? Not for each line. Into the restaurant.
Oh, catering service. We can take off catering service, right?
They would have to prepare food and we don't, food preparation.
Okay, let's go all of that restaurant.
No,
that has
Yeah.
No, that has something.
Catering would be prepared food to take out to other venues and other areas, not internal use. Your internal use, I don't see that being an issue. You're not selling that whole product.
Yeah, I won't feel no.
Yeah. We're good.
So we can take off the catering too.
I did.
I think that covers most of,
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Just real quick, so for the record, and it's gonna reflect that, for the applicant has revised their application and has removed the request for catering and restaurant with private club and restaurant without drive-through, and the bakery confectionery. So the applicant has requested remove these 4 items from her proposed use list. So if P and Z does approve, this request, it will be this amended application that we've made here tonight.
Okay.
We'll just document that on the record.
You want to get some more insight? Well, Commissioner, did y'all have some more questions about some more items over here?
I'm good with that.
I can live with that, but I'm also really just,
Yes.
I apologize, really, you guys, for being so, it's the being burnt before situation that, I won't go into, but we've been burnt, the city was burnt, and it's our job to protect. I think that's why they appointed, so, and not to create problems for residents who are already. So, but I think you hit the ones that have.
Okay. All right, Commissioner, and, we don't have anything else, can I have a motion, please?
I motion to close agenda item D.
Yes.
No, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, motion to close, agenda item D with said amendments.
There's no amendment.
Oh, okay.
She changed her application.
Okay, cool.
This way it's not contingent on your motion.
Okay, got it.
Council
Okay.
can't go
Gotcha.
back and change it.
Got it.
Right, so make it change their mind later.
No.
Can you get it one more time?
No.
Or did you clarify it?
I clarified.
All right. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed?
What was the count of approval?
Got Kim.
Ken, did you?
I approve.
Okay.
Ayes have it. Agenda item D has been approved. And the next item here is, not a public hearing, but, item E, Commissioner James McLean requests that the commission discuss lighting and landscaping standards for on and off-site and for the commissioners to consider making recommendations to council. Staff?
You want to start or?
It's usually on the
Okay.
sign the icon, so you can tell me
All right.
which ones you made. Also got the lighting location for
Okay.
stationery.
All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I look forward to working with you.
I'll make this real quick. This is just my general observation. As Derek probably know, and a lot of you know, I constantly ride around the city looking at different things. I think we have, as zoning and planning, we have an opportunity to make a impact on the city. I just got a few notes here. Upcoming, opportunities for us to make some good decisions as far as how the city looks, the street looks. One would be Red Oak Legacy Square, the new apartments on Hickory Creek, Nazim's 2 projects, as well as the lighting down here by Tajans, also at Knox. I think that before all these are done, we have an opportunity to come up with a standard for lighting. We do not have that in the city, and landscaping. The city is growing, and with these projects here, there's probably, from my guess, is about a third of undeveloped land that's going to be developed, that we have our opportunity to do the correct lighting. If you ride over here by the lake where Tajans is, it's extremely dark. I got on the phone with Lee. I talked with Ben Goodwin as well. We're installing 5 lights over there. It's been brought to my attention, if you go in that little cul-de-sac, you find sexual paraphernalia on the ground down there, so it's like a hookup spot. So this is just something that we can do as we develop these areas, is just make sure we put the proper type of lighting. If you look at the lighting outside of here versus what's in our neighborhood and what's in Coyote Estates, they're all different. So maybe we can look at trying to do something that's more standard, whether we go with LED or the other type of lighting, just something that we can, because if you look at coming down 35 where Red Oak Legacy Square is, that's going to be a great opportunity when people come down and see how Red Oak is designed. When 664 is developed with TxDOT, we may have some input to how we want to do the lighting, how we want that road to look going down. And in our comprehensive plan, I think we talked about not using up too much of the medium for wasted space. We can also maybe look at the type of lighting that we want to put down there. And also, the lighting will help, and Scott may help me with this, as a police officer, if you're able to drive through places and see, it's probably better for security as well as for our residents. So that's just what I wanted to kind of look at, something that, and these are some examples that I pulled on the different types of lighting, the different types of ways that we could look at it. And if you would show the 5 lights that we're putting over here by the lake by Tajans. One of my concerns with Tajans was when you go, if you leave and go by there now, right, it's completely dark. You get on 35, but if you're familiar with what Tajans has been doing in Corsicana and Waco, they have hundreds of cars out there. We already anticipate that there's going to be hundreds of cars parked along the side of the road when they open. It's going to be dangerous. I've already talked with Chief Wolf about possibly looking at if we could put a police car there to kind of deter some of the traffic and slow people down as they're coming in for the grand opening. If you see the 4 locations, there's going to be a 5th one. Lee, Ben Godwin, and I think Todd have gotten together. Those lights are going to be put in before Tajans open. If anybody want a copy of the letter, you can get it from Brian or either from Lee. They're putting one up there at the top, one at the little cul-de-sac, one right there by number 3, the entranceway, and 4 down by Tajans directly into there. But I just thought it's something that riding through the city, like I have nothing else to do, looking at ways to improve the city, and this is one way I think that we have the opportunity. You got the Oaks coming in, we got this other subdivision that they're working on, so if we can work on the lighting, I think it will help make our city safer. And not in the sense that it'll affect the homes, but the main streets that are going through to different areas, to the shopping centers and things upon it.
And just for clarity for the record, so y'all are just having a discussion, no vote.
Right.
Just having a conversation.
And with that,
I guess, let me just, I'll tell you kind of, so that you guys know for your own education. Kind of what we do right now is, and what kind of to your point about the mismatched lights and stuff, and I think, what we're typically requiring is just that the subdivisions have decorative lights versus standard overhead. And they're kind of at the mercy of what Encore can provide or Hilco.
okay.
We've got 2 different electric providers that don't provide the same light.
Okay.
So that does lead to some mismatch, but also just over time. So Encore says, oh, okay, well, everybody wants decorative black streetlights, great. We're gonna order 10 million of them from this one company, and then when they run out, they're like, oh, well, this company can get us new. So that's kind of how we've ended up with some of the mismatched ones. I would love if we had them. I don't know how to necessarily, I guess we'd have to work with Encore on trying to figure out, hey, what do you guys foresee in the future? Also, when they switch, because they've now swapped over from the HPS bulbs to the LED,
right.
well, that's a whole new head.
Right.
You know, you can get the same flute column, but then the head's different, right? But like currently, you're right. We don't have any street like parking lot standards for lighting. It's merely that they provide parking lot lighting, and that the lighting, doesn't shine on to adjacent properties and things like that. So when we get in permits, our process is basically just to go to provide lighting. Does it have an engineered column base? Is it less than 25 feet? Does it shine onto the property next door? Provide what amounts to a site plan with it's called a photometric plan, where it just shows like, here's the light, and here's the light as it spreads out. Okay, now there's dark spots, you need another light over here, so that it's kind of like a sprinkler system, right?
Okay.
So that the lights cross and light up the area. So that's the extent of our requirements for lighting. And then on thoroughfares and stuff, so we have that same option that developers do to get the lights from either Encore or Hilco, but they provide the Cobra heads for free. So I think a lot of times the Cobra heads got used in big street projects because they were free. And I I think they charge, and I don't know, I'd have to go back and talk with them, that's been my past experience on projects like that. Like, for the ones you're stating here, I think we're having.
Those are gonna be Cobra heads.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, I don't even know if we're getting those free out of that. But that's, I just wanna kind of let y'all know what our process is, and you're right. We don't have a set standard.
And that's kind of what I was thinking, because as Naveen properties are going up, as Emerson apartments are going up, as 7-Eleven is going in, as Cajuns is coming, Cane's is coming in, and all of these places, we have the opportunity to kind of set a standard, 25 feet high, 30 feet, whatever it is that we want, in addition to that with the landscaping. So it's just something that I wanted to bring to the board, that, you know, it's a difference when you look at a shopping center that has trees and lights versus if you go like down to the shopping center down here where Academy and Cane's is, it's just concrete and tall lights. And I just think that we have an opportunity to kind of say, hey, this is what we would like to see in Red Oak. Do we want landscaping, or do we just want concrete, you know?
Hey, James, before you stop talking about lighting, one of the things I'd like to mention is, has the city worked with whoever the city has as their retail electric provider? Because I actually work for TXU Energy, and I know a lot of times for our commercial customers, we'll invest back into our communities and our cities and help with lighting and give rebates depending upon the kind of lighting. So I would suggest that the city also have a conversation. I don't think TXU Energy is the city's retail electric provider, but there should be a conversation with them and look at the contract and see if there's some opportunity to save some dollars as well as get some investment back into the community to help with lighting as well.
They do that.
Okay, cool.
From council to council, they have to provide.
Perfect.
They have to provide that type of information.
I see, that's the thing I was thinking, and I'll probably ride that way when I leave here tonight, but I don't know what TxDOT put down on the west side of 664. But we have the opportunity, from my understanding, that we can have a say, so we may have to kick in or may not. We may have an option to pick what kind of lights we want going that way, west all the way out to 45 on our property. So there's an opportunity there for us to be able to have some input. Because there are a lot of dark streets in Red Oak, a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. James.
Okay.
That comes. The next, item F is going to be a staff update. Topic is going to be comprehensive plan update and new parks and trails master plan.
So, staff's been given a preliminary full draft of the plan to review and try to help the consultant see with, like, where is it matching with the feedback they've received so far. Generally, our comments is just, do we see something we think is missing that y'all have been asking for? So it might be something that by y'all meant steering committee, but it could also be like, we think we heard y'all talk about stuff, just to kind of funnel that information to the consultants, just so they're aware. For example, tonight, it's not about lighting, but just make sure the consultant's aware that there may be a concern about lighting and having a consistent aesthetic. And it's kind of this planar talk. We talk about how it brands and identifies areas in addition to the safety issues, the practical issues. So just make sure that stuff like that, might just be adding a few sentences to the plan, like an implementation section or the livability chapter or whatever, but just make sure the consultant's still tied into everything we're talking about for as long as we can do that prior to adoption, make sure we get everything we can in there. You usually don't change your plan for at least 5 years. In this case, it's been 10, so we just want to get everything we can get in there. So that's really where we're at on that. Then we're still planning on having a couple of steering committee meetings prior to it coming to y'all and council and Parks Board for the final adoption. We don't have an exact timeline, things that just kind of, timing for everyone, you know, the consultant has other clients too, so it's just timing everything out, all that, so, we had originally had hoped to get it all adopted by the end of the year. I'm not sure that's gonna happen, but, you know, I think everyone is anxious to, do the project right, but get it wrapped up sooner than later. Yeah, so that's really, I guess, all I've got to say about it as far as the update.
Thank you, Brian. And, can I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
You didn't have it? Thank you all. Thank you, Kim, and thank all the commissioners for your
All right.
time.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Just advise everyone that Chase isn't here to stop the meeting yet. So just be careful of anything you may be saying.
Okay.
Derek, any of your signatures on this list?
I ain't gotta do that important stuff.
Yeah, I got a pen in my hand.
Yes, sir. You guys have a good night.
There was a candy.
She said she said a couple of kids, no, we don't get a lot over.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Gotta get the sidewalks in.
Yeah, exactly, but yeah, no, and we never, you know, we're just down there on the other side and the dead end, and nobody ever shows up, so we stop by there.
Drop them off on a truck store.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, you're getting all of them.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a good night.
Yeah. I didn't know if I should make a